Hello guys, welcome back to a brand new video on Lexalexus. We're predicting week 38 now of the championship. With another game done and dusted within midweek, we're moving swiftly on to week 38. Lots of games happening all at once, but we are going to have a little bit of a break between this game week and the next game week since we will have an international break. As always guys, this is a perfect time for you guys to get involved to let me know what are your thoughts currently in this championship season. And for you guys who want to score points in the Lexalexus Football Prediction League, please let me know of your score predictions also in the comments down below. There will be an update of the Lexalexus Football Prediction League potentially next week. I'm making good progress at constructing the tables. If you guys like what you see, please smash the like button. It really does help the growth of this channel. 50 likes would be massively appreciated. Please do hit the subscribe button too, as we're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers every day. We seem to get a little bit closer to it, so it's always amazing. And thank you guys so much for the support, and please also share the channel too. All three of these things are free to do and they really help. Without any further ado, let's start predicting week 38 for the championship. We commence this video talking through Bristol City and Norwich City, two very different results for both sides. Bristol City were involved in some late drama against Sheffield United. They managed to get a draw in the end. A bit of controversy maybe how Sheffield United didn't get a penalty late on in that game. However, Bristol City fought tooth for nail and actually were very, very positive when they went behind initially to Tyrese Campbell's goal. They really dug deep and they deservedly got that equaliser with the spell that they managed to bring since going from behind. Norwich were involved in a thrilling game, probably the best game out of the midweek set of games that we got. It was a 3-2 defeat to Sheffield Wednesday, but Norwich were 2-0 up and had the game in their grasp, but it slid through their fingertips. I think within 12 minutes, Sheffield Wednesday completed a 3-goal comeback. And it typifies the pros and cons of Norwich. We know they can score goals, but defensively, they've been relatively hopeless all season, unfortunately, it has to be said. And I think here, this could be another case where that happens. I think both teams are capable of scoring here. Bristol City going through an unbeaten run in the moment and are still keeping up with the teams going into the top 6, and a good result here could actually see Bristol City in the top 6 before the next international break. I'm really confident actually of a Bristol City win, but Norwich certainly have got the quality. It's just a question whether they can defend. I'm going to say it's going to be similar to their last couple of games, and I think it'll be a narrow defeat. I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Bristol City. Got a little bit more confidence about their organisation and their run of form leading up to this game. Next is Millwall and Stoke, so this is going to be the first one of the early Saturday games that we're going to be predicting here. Different results again for both of these sides. Millwall were involved in a defeat, and this was previously, well, for follow-up actually from doing really well against Watford, but then that is then followed by a 2-0 defeat against Leeds. I mean, it is Leeds after all, and I think it was the manner of the defeat which just disappointed me a little bit. They didn't really offer too much of a threat to Leeds at all. I was potentially hoping that Millwall were going to offer a little bit more for fire in that game, but it didn't turn out to be in the end. Stoke fought really hard for this. They got 3 points against Blackburn by 1-0. They do have Victor Johansson to thank. He made a couple of amazing saves, and he has done for a lot of Stoke's wins already this season, being proven to be one of the better players on the pitch. And it is one of those hypothetical questions: where would Stoke City be without Victor Johansson in goal? Because he has been up there to one of the better goalkeepers in the Championship this season. I think going into this game, I think Stoke will be in good spirits. They've given themselves a good amount of breathing space between them and the bottom 3 now. But Millwall are always a tricky customer, and Millwall at the moment are kind of in limbo whether they could get into the top 6. I think right now, I think the gap that they have, I think is a little bit too great, but a good run of form could see a very late dash to try and get into the playoffs. I think I'm going to go for a draw. 1-1 draw I'm going for here. I can see both sides offering a decent amount going forward here, but I just think they will both cancel each other out. This is a pretty important game in terms of the promotion battle at the moment with QPR versus Leeds. Leeds had a lot of pressure. They lost ground at top of the championship and ultimately were within touching distance of potentially falling out of the promotion top two entirely. However, dropped points from Sunderland, Burnley and Sheffield United gave Leeds the perfect opportunity to bounce back, and they did. They beat Millwall by 2-0, and suddenly that defeat against Portsmouth now doesn't look so bad, because the 3 points that they lost ground from Sheffield United, Burnley and Sunderland in last sets of games, that has now been cut down to only 1 point loss, since that has cancelled out the majority of those points. So it's now not looking so bad for Leeds, and I'm really impressed of their bounce back ability. They really could have gone into that game in low spirits, but they did play really well. Solomon again proving to cause so many good things for Leeds, and when I did see him against Portsmouth, he just got a bit nullified in the whole occasion, I'd find. QPR are certainly struggling with their form at the moment. It's 4 consecutive defeats. In fact, it is the longest losing streak out of all the teams in the championship currently as of now. And I do think here, whilst this game was a very crucial game in the promotion last year, which ultimately prevented Leeds from getting promoted in the championship last year, I think it will favour Leeds this time around, and I do think a win here for Leeds will start putting the pressure again on Burnley and Sheffield United to try and get a result. Sheffield United especially have got a really tough game this weekend, so this will make things really, really intriguing. I'm going to go for a 2-0 away victory to Leeds. I think they will deal with this test relatively comfortably, I'm afraid, for QPR fans. I think it is going to be another defeat. Let me know what you think, though, in the comments down below. Now, two teams who've had a really terrible result last time around, Blackburn and Cardiff. Blackburn were involved in a defeat against Stoke City. Vishmael is still looking for his first win since recently appointing as Blackburn manager. He's only 1 point picked up in his first 3 games, and certainly they weren't bad against Stoke. I actually think they did really push for things, but I just think mistakes from players and still try to adjust to the sudden change of systems, I think is definitely still taking place in the moment. And I could see Blackburn potentially being a late bloomer in terms of getting round Ishmael's style of football. Maybe a little bit similar to what we're currently seeing with Derby County with John Eustace. Cardiff, they are involved in a terrible run at the moment. 3 consecutive defeats. They had a crucial game against Luton where a win for them would have seen them really starting to reap the benefits and starting to get some breathing space in the bottom 3. But Luton have dragged them back into it. They are only 1 point clear of 22nd place Derby County now. And now that really puts the pressure on every single game that they're going to get now. A good result here for Cardiff will put the pressure on the bottom 3 to try and get a result. But I do think with how they're going at the moment, there just seems to be something not quite right with Cardiff at the moment. But for the fact that Blackburn have been winless for a couple of games, it might be a good opportunity for Cardiff to try and get a good result. I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in this game. I do think both of these sides are desperate to try and get a good result for different reasons, of course. Blackburn currently, not looking like that they could potentially get into the top 6 again. The gap is starting to increase between them and the playoffs now. But a win here would actually put them right back into it. So ultimately, with different motivations from both, I think it'll end as a draw. And I think it will be a pretty scrappy one, not necessarily filled with the best of quality from both sides either. Next up is 6th versus 4th, Coventry versus Sunderland. Now, position-wise, you think it'll be quite close, but Sunderland are actually, I believe, 13 points clear from 6th and 5th in the playoffs. They're kind of in their own little mini-league, and they are, trying to breach a 7-point gap to try and get to Burnley. So, Sunderland are kind of chilling out in terms of their points tally at this moment in time. It was a pretty disappointing result to only get a draw against Preston from home, but Preston clearly set up to be very difficult to break down, and actually Preston offered quite a decent threat in that game. Coventry were involved in their first defeat in 10 from Frank Lampard, losing to Derby County by 2-0. It was one of those ones where Derby really felt up for this one. And this was a good example of when you get a win where it's been long overdue, you then reap the benefit of feeling so good about yourself, and now you start to get a bit of a streak, a big, good bit of positive momentum. Back-to-back wins for Derby now means they jumped from last place in the Championship up to 22nd and are only 1 point away from getting out for bottom three and could see themselves out of it. But for Coventry's sake, it was a little bit of a blow. Certainly now, in this point of the season, they'll be wanting to try and get some breathing space from the chasing pack around them. You know, you see Bristol City getting quite close. Middlesbrough are still within the race as well. So Coventry need to get a result, I think, to cement that pressure. Sunderland, I think, a little bit less so. Unless we see a meltdown between Burnley, Sheffield United and Leeds' form, I don't see Sunderland having a chance of getting promotion, sadly, for them. But as a prediction, I think I'm going to go for another draw, 1-1. I do think Coventry will be desperate for a win, but I think with the quality of Sunderland, I think they will be good enough to restrict Coventry from getting a result, and I think they'll at least get a point from this game. We spoke about Middlesbrough, but they potentially have a really tough game against a potentially revitalised Luton Town. So Luton picked up their first away win since October, beating Cardiff by 2-1. And it was a really good performance from Luton Town. They did take the lead, but then Cardiff picked them back, and you would have thought that Cardiff actually, in the build-up to the second goal, Cardiff were really, really close to taking the lead, and then Luton immediately hit back on the other side of the pitch with Theo Asgard getting the goal for Luton Town. So, brilliant determination. They managed the game, I think, perfectly, and whilst Cardiff were very close to scoring at times, Luton held on, and it's given them a good chance. They're only 2 points away from Cardiff now. So it was a must-win game for Luton, and they are doing that. They are winning those must-win games. This game, I think certainly at home, when you're in a relegation battle, you need to be taking something from home. But Middlesbrough themselves are doing okay. I believe they've won 3 out of their last 4 games. So therefore, Middlesbrough has now slowly started to creep back up. They do have a little bit of ground to make up to try and get back into the top 6. But a good result here could actually see Middlesbrough in touching distance or potentially even getting into the top 6 themselves. But as a prediction, I think we're going to see a similar scenario where both teams have got something so important to play for. I think it'll be a pretty open game. I think we will see goals from both sides. I'm actually going to go for a 2-2 draw in this game. I see this one being relatively high scoring, with both sides really desperate to try and get the better of their attacks. But I think it'll end in a high scoring draw. Let me know what you think though in the comments. Next is Oxford and Watford. I've recently spoken about Cardiff's, misfortunes, being the biggest losers in the Championship after this set of midweek games. But Oxford, I think you've also got to throw into that bracket as well, since Oxford are now in 20th and they haven't been down there for quite a while, but it's because their form has deteriorated in the past couple of weeks or so. It was a bad defeat for them against Hull City. They took the lead, but Hull, with 2 goals in a short space of time, completed the comeback, and unfortunately for them, they just could not quite find an equaliser. And it was a shame because Michael Helix scored a quality goal, but it wasn't rewarded with 3 points or any points in that matter in the end, unfortunately for Oxford's sake. Watford picked up a good win against Swansea, a 1-0 victory. Sissoko getting the only goal in that game. Swansea did have a spell to try and push for that equaliser, but Watford held on relatively well, and actually Watford not a million miles away, Watford, of potentially getting into the top 6 if they can get some consistency. And I think that's been the problem with Watford recently. They've just not been consistent enough. But I do think against an Oxford side who they themselves have been consistently not picking up points, it's been a real struggle for Oxford. I believe there's only 1 point picked up in 5 matches actually. I do think here Watford have got a good opportunity to get 3 points here, and I think they can. I'm going to go for a 2-1 away victory to Watford, which will be a great result for Watford, but it will be a really bad result for Oxford and a big opportunity for the teams below them to potentially start closing the gap on them. I think what this set of midweek games proved is that the Championship continues to deliver the unpredictable. Who would have thought that Plymouth would have got their first away win in over a year by beating Portsmouth, who had recently won at their ground against the current leaders of the Championship? I don't think anyone would have. It's absolutely unbelievable. But this is a very crucial game in isolation, Plymouth and Derby. It is 2 of the bottom 3 facing each other. And I think if either one of them gets a good result, it does give a good opportunity to look out of the relegation zone. Now, Derby win, it would almost be a guarantee they will be out of the bottom 3 by this international break. Plymouth less so because their goal difference is significantly worse than the other sides around them. That can be a pretty big disadvantage compared to the other sides fighting relegation. But it is undeniable that at home park is where Plymouth picking up most of their points. And it's a tough one because Derby, of course, have won 2 in a row, but those 2 wins have come at Pride Park, and I'm still yet to see a similar performance like that from John Eustace away from home. And as a prediction, I think Plymouth could potentially knock Derby's good momentum with a 3-2 win. I see this being very open, actually. Whilst I think it will start quite shaky, I think as soon as we get 1 goal in, I think both teams will slug it out and try and get a good result. So I'm going to hope for drama and I'm going to hope for goals. 3-2 Plymouth I'm going for. Let me know what you think in the comments. Next is Preston and Portsmouth. 2 teams in the middle of the park of the Championship. Both are only separated by 2 points. A good result for Portsmouth can actually see them overtake Preston in the table. Preston, of course, picked up that draw against Sunderland and maybe arguably a little bit unlucky that they didn't get a result. Sunderland did get an equaliser pretty late on and actually did play really, really well, building up to their first goal in that game. Portsmouth, it was one of those games where you scratch your head just thinking, how on earth did they not get anything from this? But Plymouth managed the game perfectly. They stuck 11 men behind the ball. They got 2 goals from 2 well-worked attacks from Plymouth, and ultimately Portsmouth needed to wait until they had a numerical advantage on the pitch to start trying to get some real meaningful chances, but wasn't to be. And Portsmouth's away form, whilst it has shown a slight tint of improvement, is significantly worse than their home form, and I think Preston's home form has been relatively good all season. Preston are going through a bit of a horrendous one at the moment. I think they could go back to winning ways here. I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory to Preston, and that should certainly see them take a really good leap into mid-table. Next up is Swansea and Burnley. Both sides would have a result that they really would not want to have. So Swansea, of course, were involved in that defeat against Watford. Did push in the second half to get an equaliser, but in the end they huffed and puffed and they just couldn't quite get enough to force Watford into too much danger. Burnley, of course, not only did they fail to win, but there's another goal conceded by Burnley. A John Swift free kick, the undoing, and gave West Brom a really good point from that game, actually. And missed opportunity for Burnley, and really, really heated in the end. Scott Parker will likely have to be sitting in the stands going into this game since he was red-carded in the midst of the tension that happened right at the end of the game. I do think this game will be intriguing. I think Swansea can offer something, but the question is, can Burnley convert? Because if Burnley converts, I think Burnley can score a couple here. I'm going to go for the latter, and I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory, but it would either be that or Swansea could even nick it, because I do think Swansea do have the potential, but I cannot ignore how strong Burnley's defence has been, and I just think the consistency of the goals that they're starting to get now, I think they are starting to look a little bit better going forward. So therefore, I will give the edge to Burnley in this game. Next up is West Brom and Hull. Two teams with good positive results last time around. West Brom with a brilliant draw. I mean, to face Leeds and Burnley away back to back and to get 2 points out of it, I think they would take that. And because of that, and with Coventry losing, West Brom have now overtaken Coventry in the table. So West Brom are quietly going about their way to confirm their playoff place. And they're going through a bit of a unbeaten run as well, which is a brilliant time in the season to get one. Hull were involved with a win over Oxford. Now, considering that Hull, a couple of weeks ago did have the worst home form in the league, they had two very winnable home games with Plymouth and Oxford coming up. They could have easily crumbled under the pressure, but Hull have picked 6 points out of 6, and because of that, they're now on 40 points. So now that they've hit the 40-point region, I think Hull are looking to a position where a couple more wins with around 9 games left for each side, I think could do it. I really do think the high 40s is what you're going to need this year to avoid a drop based on how the bottom three are currently doing. Here, I think it's going to be a tough test here. I do think West Brom at home have been relatively good all season, and therefore I think they could pick up 3 points here. I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to West Brom, and that should surely start giving themselves a bit of confidence that West Brom will now be a playoff side. Let me know what you think though in the comments. We conclude this week with the Steel City derby, Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield United. I'm hoping for a better spectacle than the last one. It was very, very cagey, and Sheffield United got the better of Sheffield Wednesday in the end by 1-0. It was very, very tight. I do think with what these teams have got going for, this is going to be so spicy. Sheffield Wednesday, with those 2 wins in a row against Plymouth and of course that incredible 3-goal comeback against Norwich, they're going to be feeling the confidence with 6 goals scored in their last 2 games. Sheffield Wednesday are finding the back of the net pretty consistently, and they are now going on a tiny charge to try and get into the top 6, and it's certainly not impossible for them to potentially get some pressure in that region of the table. But Sheffield United themselves have got all the pressure. Burnley and Leeds would have already played, and if both of them have won, it puts the pressure on Sheffield United to make sure that they get a good result here to keep competitive in this region of the table and to make sure that Burnley do not have the opportunity to overtake them in the table. So this is a massive game for both sides for, very different reasons, for aspirations of trying to get up from the championship. So this could be a damaging defeat with whoever one does lose this game, if any. A draw is very, very tempting, I cannot lie, but I'm going to go for a very narrow 1-0 away win to Sheffield United. I think it will match the reverse fixture, unfortunately. I do think, again, it's going to be very, very tense and cagey. And I do think the occasion might actually prevent both these sides from really attacking each other. And I think with the quality that Sheffield United can offer, I think that might just be the difference that carries them from this game. But honestly, if it goes either way, I would not be surprised either. It is certainly a very open game, this one. So let me know of your thoughts of the Steel City derby also in the comments. So that wraps up my week 38 predictions, and finally I can take a breath. It looks like we've got a little bit of a break of championship football for the past week and a half or so. But I don't think I will be taking a break from making videos, so I may be streaming 1 or 2 games. And I will be releasing my thoughts on promotion, on that run-in, the run-in of the top 6, and the run-in of the relegation. And honestly, if it is as close as it is currently, it's going to be absolutely fascinating, but also exciting to talk through the implications of the championship leading up to the final 7 games for each championship side this season. If you guys enjoyed, please do smash the like button, it really does help. Please do hit the subscribe button too, and please also share the channel too. All 3 of these things are free to do, and they really, really help. Thank you guys as always so much for watching. You guys are legendary for joining this video, and as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care everyone, and I'll see you soon.